Hey guys, what is up? It is the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys another vlog. I actually deleted the first video about this because I had realized after I made it, I was like, oh fuck, I'm like, this is essentially like the same thing as what I was hoping probably wouldn't happen. It's just the idea, Pascal Siakam signed a 4-year, $190 million deal with the Indiana Pacers. Essentially making like $47 million a year, which is a lot of fucking money. That's Giannis Antetokounmpo money. The only thing, my initial issue with the original video is the idea that I thought, like, you know, 5 years, 250 was going to be like much different because it was really the extra year that I was worried about, because whenever you lock star players in for like 5 years, you're stuck with them, and that extra year really makes a huge difference in whether or not you can move a guy or not. I'm not saying we're going to move Pascal Siakam. Obviously, that's not the case. We just signed him to an extension, but down the road, if you have an issue with this player, maybe they're not performing up to the abilities or whatever, or you're just super overpaying for them, they become very hard to move. They become Damian Lillard. They become Trae Young. You know, guys like that. Guys like Zach LaVine. And the Pacers don't want that. But, you know, you got to do what you got to do if you want to keep your superstar player happy in Tyrese Halliburton. And, you know, honestly, the Pacers were kind of backed into between a wall and a hard place. You know, it's like we knew we had to bring Siakam back. We knew he wanted a max contract. But the thing is, like, the Pacers basically had to do this. I know there's people that are like, oh, well, we shouldn't have signed him for this. We shouldn't have signed him for that. And I really also wanted to change my opinion on this. I've had a little time to think about it. Like, I came home from, like, I was just super excited. I came home from getting a tire fixed on my car, and, like, I got the notification at the tire shop, like, where they were fixing, or like patching a hole in my tire, and as soon as I got home, I was like, I gotta record, like, this is what I thought. So, like, that was kind of like my spur of the moment initial reaction, but I've had some time to think about it now. But it's the thing that the Pacers now have their bona fide number 2. You know what I'm saying? They had to keep Tyrese Halliburton happy, so they had to bring back Pascal Siakam. They gave Siakam probably more money than he was going to get anywhere else. You know, a lot of people were saying that, like, the Philadelphia 76ers were going to want him, and I never understood that notion. I mean, like, yeah, they might have the money to bring in Pascal Siakam, but the thing is, I didn't understand why people thought Philadelphia was going to want him, because Philadelphia, the fit next to Joel Embiid, wouldn't have been as good as a Paul George, which is the guy that they're after. But the thing is, this puts us over the second apron. That's the thing that I wanted to make about this video that I didn't put in the first video, is that this officially puts us over the second apron. And it makes us a luxury tax hell team. You know, that's what it makes us. It puts us in salary cap space hell. So here's the thing. OG Anunoby is not happening unless OG Anunoby just decides he wants to come here for fucking nothing. Same thing with, like, maybe a guy like Miles Bridges. Miles Bridges is going to get a bigger contract someplace else. You are officially locked into this team. Like, after this Pascal Siakam contract, when he signs it on July 6th, because the moratorium period has to end, you're locked in. So, like, really, this team, whether or not it's going to be a championship team or not, officially falls on whether or not Benedict Mathurin becomes the guy that we think he can be. Granted, there is some positives to this. You know, Doug McDermott's contract is going to come off the books. You know, we got Obi Toppin, who we could bring back, which at this point, I kind of don't see why we wouldn't now that we got this deal done, because he's going to be a restricted free agent, and honestly, if you can keep him, like, you probably should. I hate that he sucks at defense, but it's just the idea, like, at this point, you just got to try to keep your unit intact as much as possible, because free agency right now is null and void. Like, this is your free agency. I hope you guys are happy with it, because, well, our payroll is now like $207 million, or plus. Like, and those are rough estimates right now. Like, those are just what the estimates say online with all the websites that have the team's payroll going on at the moment. I will say this, they will probably bring back another shooter on a vet minimum deal, maybe a Gary Harris or something like that. I'm not thrilled about Gary Harris, but you are going to see Jarris Walker get more minutes probably out of this. Jalen Smith has a player option. I'm assuming he's going to decline that, mostly because he played so fucking well this year that, like, somebody else is going to pay him more money to go start at power forward for them. But it's just the idea, we we have a lot to do. You know what I'm saying? We have a lot to do now at this point. We got to try to maybe make a trade or two to see if we can get like some defensive rebounding or just defense, rebounding, 3-point shooting. Those are the three main things. We have point guard play. It's going to be very, very hard for this team to maneuver now in free agency now that they signed Siakam, which honestly is not the end of the world. This free agency class is nicer than most free agency classes. LeBron's going to be an unrestricted free agent. Paul George is an unrestricted free agent. Siakam is officially basically off the market, but you never know. You know what I'm saying? We could have a DeAndre Jordan situation here where he verbally agreed to sign with the Mavericks and then he ended up signing with the Clippers after Chris Paul took his goons over to fucking DeAndre Jordan's house and was like, no, you're not leaving. But Tyrese Haliburton had something to do with this as well. This is our duo. And you know what? I know a lot of people are going to look at this, and even myself, I was like, I don't know if he's worth $47 million a year. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. Great player. But I was like, do we really want to max him out? Do we really want to overpay for him? And I get that we kind of had to, but on the flip side of that, that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin of this is Pascal Siakam, now that he's a maxed out player on our team, is going to get a whole hell of a lot of opportunity. And what I mean by that is I know his career numbers don't look great from a scoring perspective, but this is a guy who's shooting 38% from three after we traded for him, which is a career high. I don't know if people really know that about Pascal Siakam, but after we traded for Pascal Siakam, his career 3-point numbers, I think that's the highest he's ever shot from three. Pre-trade, before the January 17th trade that we did for Pascal Siakam, dude was shooting 31% from three in Toronto. And then once he came to the Pacers, it went up to almost 40%. It's .386, so 38.6%, almost 39% from three. And that is a career high. Never in his career has he shot above 36 or 37%. And with us, in the 41 games he played for us, he shot 38% from three, 54% from the field. The free throw percentage was about 70%, .699, so 70%. But he averages 21 and 8. And a lot of people are saying, that's a lot of money to spend for somebody who averages 21 and 8, which is very true. It is a lot. And I mean a lot of fucking money for a guy who's just over a 20-point-per-game scorer. But here's the thing. Pascal Siakam changed so much for us, and that's why he got the money he did. We really fucking wanted him back, because if we didn't bring him back, Tyrese Haliburton was probably going to lose his fucking mind, understandably so. But the thing is, Pascal Siakam's a guy I could see going up to a 24, 25 point per game scorer, and I mean that. You know what I'm saying? This is a guy that it's in the half season that he played with us, he played 41 games for us. He played literally exactly half a season with us, and he averaged 21 points per game and shot 38% from three. Next year, he's going to get a lot more opportunity. Benedict Mathurin, I think, is going to be kind of relegated to a catch-and-shoot guy. But Pascal Siakam kills people in the post. He's a great fast break player. He's a great defensive player. You got to understand, there's not a lot of post players in the NBA anymore either. There's not a lot of guys who play the post and do it well. Joel Embiid is the exception. Giannis, to some extent. LeBron, has that little post fadeaway. But Pascal Siakam can legitimately work down in the post. This dude's post fadeaway is fucking automatic. Anywhere from 10 to 12 feet out, this dude is automatic. So he's a mid-range level threat like that, and that's part of the reason he got so much money. I don't think people understand that as well, is Pascal Siakam adds a dynamic to this team that it did not have previously. It has a legitimate post-scoring threat. It has a legitimate mid-range threat. It has a legitimate shot-creating threat. Pascal Siakam can take guys off the dribble. It's really more so his skill set that we're paying for rather than his production. You know what I'm saying? And even that, I think, is going to go up. Once Tyrese Haliburton and Pascal Siakam get that pick and roll game down pat, it's going to be fucking murder for other teams. And a lot of people were also saying, with Tyrese Haliburton after the injury stuff, was is he really this good of a player, or was it just a fluke in the first half of last year? And I have to say, I don't think it was a fluke. I think we saw that in the playoffs. Tyrese Halliburton is legitimately a bona fide all-star. And Pascal Siakam can also be a bona fide all-star, which I think he's going to be with Tyrese Halliburton on his team. The other thing people need to understand about this as well is we haven't seen what is guaranteed, what the base salary is, and all this stuff. Like, I don't know if people understand this or not, but this is $190 million with incentives. Like, there's got to be some contract incentives in there. So we have yet to see what the incentives are. We have yet to see what the base pay is. We have yet to see if it's front loaded or back loaded or you know, whatever it is. So still, even though it's $47 million on average, that doesn't include incentives. Like, for all we know, the base pay could be $40 million, and it's got a whole bunch of, like, you know, if you become an all-star, okay, here's another $8 million spread out over 4 years or some shit like that. So that's another thing people need to keep in mind with this is, I know there's a lot of people, there's some people who are freaking out. Most people seem to be happy with it. I'm happy with it. I know, like, I didn't want us to pay this much money for him, but you got to do what you got to fucking do. You know what I'm saying? If you went to the Eastern Conference Finals, you got to keep it together. You know what I'm saying? Like, regardless of what you thought, like, what were you going to replace Pascal Siakam with? That's the question. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, well, Obi Toppin. Yeah. Okay, let's get rid of Pascal Siakam and replace him with Obi Toppin and see how fucking far we go. Okay, I guarantee you we'll be another fucking lottery team. So it's just the idea. I understand this isn't ideal, but at the same time, you have to look at it as it's only 4 years also. That 5th year, I hate 5-year contracts. I'm just going to say that. I hate 5-year contracts. And the reason I hate 5-year contracts is because you're locked into shit for another year. Like, the 5th year is kind of like an extra. And, you know, I've seen way too many teams sign guys to 5-year deals, and it just doesn't pan out in that time. You know, 4 years is at least, like, 5 years is a lot of time. I don't know if people understand that, but, like, you do not want to be stuck into a player that is not making things any better or like things are not getting any better for 5 years. You don't want that. And I don't think Pascal Siakam is going to be that type of player as well. That's another thing. I think Pascal Siakam is going to see a huge bump in scoring. I think that's going to improve drastically once the team also gets allocated. Like, once Tyrese, because a lot of people don't understand this as well. I don't know how many games Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam actually played together because Tyrese Halliburton's been, you know, was injured for most of the second half of the season. I don't think a lot of people understand that there's still a lot of potential for growth here, because once Tyrese Halliburton and Siakam get into camp, like training camp, and they get to finally spend some time together, like get a full season under their belt together, shit is going to get better. It's going to get, like, Tyrese Halliburton doesn't have to go out there and beat teams by himself anymore. So I like this. You know, I love what the potential for this is. I understand $47 million is a lot. It's a lot of fucking money. But, you know, like I said, got to consider incentives and the idea that this is only going to get better. You know, like, I don't know if people, like, want to admit that or not. Like, there's one person who, like, really, really fucking hates the idea that we re-signed Siakam, and I'm just like, bro, like, who are we gonna replace him with? There are not a lot of good power forwards in the NBA. You know what I'm saying? Like, all the guys that are good are on teams that are not willing to give them up. And you have arguably the second or third best in the NBA on your team now. So all I'm saying is shit's going to get a lot better. I cannot wait for Benedict Mathurin to be added to this lineup because I just think this is going to open up things for Benedict Mathurin as well. That's something that I've also saw people talk about, is like, this is going to stunt Benedict Mathurin's growth. Yes and no. You know, I think what's going to happen here is our big three is going to be Benedict Mathurin, Pascal Siakam, and Tyrese Halliburton. And while I understand the the uncertainty that people have about Benedict Mathurin, I think this is going to do wonders for him. I really do. I think it's going to do a whole hell of a lot for Benedict Mathurin, because now it's like, okay, you don't only have to worry about Tyrese Halliburton anymore. You got to worry about Pascal Siakam. And even if both teams are D'ing both of those guys up, Benedict Mathurin is capable of taking over games. Okay, like, I think we know that. Like, we've seen it from Benedict Mathurin, where it's like, if he is on his shit, he's a damn good basketball player. And I think this is free agency for us. I hate to say that, but I feel like we're not going to get a whole lot of Pacers news until, the end of the offseason, where maybe they pull a small trade here or there. Maybe they trade some picks for, they'll probably do what they did last year. They'll trade 2 second-round picks for a guy like Obi Toppin. You know what I'm saying? That's where I think our moves are at. I would really like to see us trade for Robert Williams. I think Robert Williams is a guy with only $6 million in salary. I think it's like 6.8. I think he's a guy you could swing for, and it would do wonders for our team. Maybe you sign Andre Drummond on, I don't know, a vet minimum deal. I don't know what Andre Drummond's worth, but if you could bring in Andre Drummond, make a trade for a guy like maybe Robert Williams, and just pick up a shooter. Maybe I honestly, after this, I think maybe Doug McDermott comes back as a shooter. Who knows? Maybe. I know it's not going to be Buddy Hield at this point. After this Siakam contract extension, it's not going to be Buddy Hield. And unfortunately, I think Malik Monk is out of the picture too. But even like Dorian Finney-Smith would be a big addition. So I feel like our free agency is done. I hate to say that, but I feel like our free agency is done. And at this point, we're just going to pull off small trades to try and improve our roster where we can. Even though, I think Jarris Walker is going to get a whole lot more minutes this upcoming year. Obviously, we're going to have a healthy Benedict Mathurin, which is that's the most interesting part of this. I know everybody, even myself, I was like, there's Paul George out there, there's OG Anunoby. I'm really, really excited to see how Tyrese, Pascal, and Benedict Mathurin all play together. If anybody's going to take a step back, it's probably going to be Andrew Nembhard. I hate to say that because Andrew Nembhard played fucking phenomenally, but if there's anybody who's probably going to not get the same amount of opportunity next year that they did this past year, it's going to be guys like Andrew Nembhard, who is a backup point guard or a backup 2 guard. He might start at the 2, but Andrew Nembhard will allow Tyrese Haliburton to play off ball and shit, but I think this is it. This is our roster. So tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. Helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more on the Fast Break Report, and I'm out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.